Well, the important thing for counties to understand is they have a lot of the skills and risk management already, right? Even though they might not know the fancy, geeky terminology about cybersecurity, risk management is something that county executives, county people that run counties do, right? Whether that be in public safety areas, law enforcement, running prisons, dealing with the threat of tornadoes and other natural disasters. They're used to dealing with these risks. They're used to managing and doing various different trade-offs. It's the same in cybersecurity. Understanding what you have, understanding how you protect it, understanding how you figure out if something's going wrong, and then what to do immediately after something goes wrong, and then to have an after action activity to say, what can we do better for next time? Those 5 steps are common, whether it be cybersecurity or making sure we're worrying about the next tornado season.
With cybersecurity, this is all new stuff. Tornadoes have been around forever, but there are so many new threats, and a lot of times we're dealing with county officials that don't even have a Facebook page. You know, they don't even want to be part of that. What would you say to them to sort of open up that world to them?
Yeah. Understand the difference between going to a doctor and being a doctor, right? You don't have to be the doctor. You need to have the conversation with the folks that can guide you on the cybersecurity side, knowing those kind of knowledge areas of how this is managed. But talk about your symptoms with those kind of folks. Are going to certainly be professionals and consultants that are in this space, but don't always go for the bright, shiny object. Understanding how you're balancing your investments across those 5 domains. A lot of times people are onto detect. What's the latest new software? They can figure that out, but they don't have any idea of what they have, right? So I would also say for state of Kentucky level, have a conversation with the academics who are in their state. There's fine people teaching people on this very issue. How, what do they know? How do they know it? Where do you get those students to be the interns in the counties to build that next generation of capability and capacity, and then lead on one another? As I said in the main talk, mutual assistance, right? You can't handle every brush fire in your county if it gets too big. You talk to the neighboring counties with mutual assistance. Have that same kind of discussion on the cyber side. If the threat gets to a certain level in a fire, you call in the neighboring counties. If it gets bigger than that, you might be calling in federal government assets on forest fires and such. Same kind of thing should exist in cyberspace. And an advantage is also the threat information is now available in cyberspace. So what threats are showing up? How are they happening? There's companies that worry about paying attention to what that screen looks like on the new threats arriving and warning folks. But if you're not tuned into what that threat information sharing environment is, then you don't have that. Now, does a small county need to have all of that sophisticated tracking? No, right? But maybe the larger counties, Kentucky Association of Counties, state level entities can do that coordination and make sure people have the information that they need with a warning and alert, right? Everybody doesn't have to be, the big city capability and still manage the risk at their county level. The thing we need to understand in cyberspace, though, is the threat might attack you first, right? If that power plant, if that car factory is in your county, rural though it might be, the hackers might be coming after that plant, and you're going to be the first responders to deal with it at that level. So it's not something that we can ignore.
What could we do to provide a service to all the different counties, even the smaller counties that don't have a lot of money? What would we be able to do to kind of help them out in this arena?
So part of what happens in that threat sharing space is we have these things called information sharing and analysis centers. About 20 years ago, these started to be formed. They were critical infrastructure sector by critical infrastructure sector. So the financial services sector has one. Oil and natural gas has one. Gas, natural gas has one. Others do. There's a healthcare ISAC. But now there's entities coming together called ISALs. And that's not as formal as the ISACs. So Kentucky, through Association of Counties, can have an ISAL, have coordination with the multi-state ISAC. That's one that deals with state, local government awareness in that side, and have that conversation with multi-state ISAC on what would it look like for Kentucky, right size for Kentucky and the counties of Kentucky, small, medium, and large, on what that can look like. You see this now with some of these information sharing entities. For instance, the oil and natural gas ISAC actually is outsourced from the financial services Services ISAC because they've been doing it for 15 years. They've created a very replicable process. So as it evolves, the oil and natural gas folks essentially lease capacity from the financial services folks. The same kind of thing could be a relationship with either them or multi-state ISAC in these areas.
Okay. I really liked one thing you said. It's from, coming from somebody who's into the technical world, and you said that one of the most important things is just to trust your gut, which seems counterintuitive. Talk about that.
In the end, it comes down to risk management. A lot of times people ignore stuff they don't understand, right? And so they know something's wrong, but they're like, I don't know enough about it to know if I can even ask the right questions. And then you find out, yeah, sorry, that was cancer, and that's not good. So if you think something's starting to go wrong, if you're sensing that it doesn't make sense, and that's why I gave those 5 words out of the cybersecurity framework, right? Do we know what we have? How do we protect what we have? And how do we detect if something goes wrong? If you ask those very questions to start, that'll help you with that trusting of gut to give you the questions to articulate. Now we can go on to the rest of that 40 pages, or the rest of the 400 pages that the geeks should go take that as their midterm or final exam. But the questions for the executive, for the risk manager, are really those top 5. So on the education and resources front, one again shouldn't be reinventing wheels. If you look at the NICE framework, it talks about what are the skill sets that a cybersecurity workforce should have, right? So you have these different domains of skills. And so by laying out that functionality, you can know who to hire or who to outsource to, or maybe even at an educational level, are we training people to be the workforce of the future of Kentucky in this area? And then also there's resources like us at National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, nccoe.nist.gov, right? We have that information that talks about these practice guides where we've already done the lab research and describe it. And each one of those goes in 3 parts. An executive discussion, right? So any county executive could have person that runs the county can understand this kind of stuff. The next side is part B, think of that as the business manager, the person who might be in charge of IT, and then the geeky stuff that maybe you outsource this to the technology company. So those resources are there. There's no point in reinventing any of these wheels. Take the pieces that are out there, beg, borrow, and steal these parts. A lot of them exist, and the job of National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence and the National Institute of Standards and Technology is to create these resources, not only for the federal side, but for critical infrastructures, and an important critical infrastructure is state and local government itself.